What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Frenzy podcast. We are here with our Week 4 recap. My name is Ben Pedalero. I'm your host. I'm here, as always, with my very special co-hosts, Robert Armstrong and Tyler Mastromarino. Boys, how we doing?
Great Monday night. Patriots out of surprise from COVID, so always a good extra day of football.
Let's go, Pats. They look good so far.
Absolutely. We're feeling good. Double header tonight. It's a great weekend of football. My fiance is not enjoying it, but I am. So, super excited to be here with you guys. We're also honored tonight to have Ian Beauchesne from Titletown Takes. Ian, how we doing tonight?
Great, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're honored. If you guys get a chance, definitely check out his podcast. But now to get into our content for the night, boys, I wanted to switch it up a little tonight. Welcoming our first guest in Ian, I wanted to kind of take the show in a different direction, kind of change up the order tonight. I wanted to start off with a little game I put together, inspired by verbiage from our own Robert Armstrong. We're going to play a game called Studs and Duds. So I'm going to pick 3 players from this week who kind of went off, but have been quiet up until this point. I mean, a couple names come to mind right off the bat, but I'm going to list off these players, and, you 3, Rob, Tyler, and Ian, are going to go through and kind of make your case for whether you think they're going to be a stud or a dud the rest of the season. Basically how it works is you'll each have a turn to go first for each player that I'm going to list off. You'll get 1 point for each valuable fact that you provide. And then for each person that goes after you get 1 point for a repeat fact. But if you provide me with a new fact, you'll get 2 points. And then the person that goes last will get 3 points for a new fact. And you'll also, it's kind of like a knockoff around the horn. I think I can say that because they're not going to watch this. Does that make sense? You're the guest. You'll go first for our first player, which will be actually from your team, Odell Beckham Jr. Is he going to be a 15 seconds? Go ahead.
I'm going to say he has a chance to become a stud. I think the biggest key here for him is the play of his quarterback in Baker Mayfield. The ability for Mayfield to continue to play at the high level that he did yesterday. I mean, I know it was against this Dallas defense that right now can't really stop a nosebleed. They're giving up close to 400 yards of offense per week. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, he's got the ability, but it all comes down to Mayfield and whether or not he continues to look at him as a 1A receiver like he showed. We saw a lot of New York Giants style OBJ yesterday. I think that if that continues, he could have a strong year for the Browns, who they currently sit in a tie atop the AFC North.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I think just out of respect for actually, I'll let Rob go first before I share my input. But Rob, Odell Beckham Jr., rest of the season, stud or dud?
Rest of the season as a whole, I'm going to give him a stud. Just based off the fact that he is the number 1 guy there, receiver core. Browns look better than they were last year. Obviously, they had the hype coming out last year. Didn't show it. Look better this year. Even in the loss, his worst week, he still had 10 targets, then 6, and then 8 this week. However, if you're going to try to trade for Odell, or you have him on your team and you're thinking about him, he does have probably 2 of the best defenses in the league coming up in the Colts and the Steelers. So short-term dud, I think. Long-term stud for the rest of the season because he's still going to get a ton of targets. Baker loves him. And now if they're utilizing him in those gadget plays and the run plays that they had last night, that just adds a little bit more fantasy value and a potential for another touchdown.
All right, awesome input. And then Tyler, same thing. Odell, stud or dud the rest of the year?
I am going with a dud. Obviously,
Okay.
not to an extent where you're going to be benching him every single week, but I'm thinking more of a wide receiver 2 flex play. I mean, in a game where the Cleveland Browns scored 49 points, and this is basically the best matchup against Dallas, he only had 8 targets that game. That's not a crazy amount of targets. Cleveland, to me, is clearly a run-first team, and OBJ's got that big playability. He looks way healthier this season than last season, but the Browns are just going to be a run-heavy team, and there's no reason to stop when they're just running all over teams. I mean, Odell's a great and talented player, but the Browns are still the Browns. Baker's not looking his way every single time, so I'm going dud, especially compared to his 33 points in standard this year or this week.
Awesome. Yeah. And I was going to say, I think out of respect for the player, this is what I was going to say before Rob went. I think it's hard to, call Odell a dud just because of, the name Odell, which may be why he was drafted where he was in some leagues this year. But I definitely see your argument there, Tyler. So now Beach, we're going to slide you to the back and we'll go Rob, Tyler, Beach. Another obvious one here, Joe Mixon, real concern throughout the first few weeks of the season, absolutely blew it up yesterday. Rob, stutter dud the rest of the year, Joe Mixon.
I hate Joe. No, I don't hate Joe Mixon. I actually really think he's really talented. I hate the Bengals offensive line. I hate running backs that have bad offensive lines. See Saquon Barkley. See now Joe Mixon. Of course, he's going to do well against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, I think any running back coming into Jacksonville is going to put up a good fantasy week. I mean, he has the carries. If you want to start him, he's going to have the carries. I mean, even if they're getting blown out, 19 carries, 16 carries, 17 carries, and obviously 25 this week. Does not average against good defenses like Philly and even Cleveland. He averaged 2.9 yards a carry. Like I said on the podcast probably last week, his first 3 steps are backwards, sideways, because there's already someone rushing at him every single time he touches the ball. I think he's an incredible talent, and I feel like he's being wasted on the Bengals. However, I do not think you can take a performance against one of the worst defenses in the NFL and then call him a stud all of a sudden after how he started off against actual respectable defenses.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing with Joe Mixon this week. And I don't want to steal anyone else's thunder, but obviously this was kind of his get-right week given the matchup. But Tyler, we'll go to you. Stutter dud Joe Mixon the rest of the season. Try and be unbiased if you can.
I cannot say he will be a stud, so I'm going to have to go with he will be a dud. The touches are absolutely there. He had 25 rush attempts and 6 catches this week. That's 31 touches. You got to score that many fantasy points if you're getting that many touches, even throughout every game. He's still been around that 20 mark. But for me, it is like Rob said, it's that O-line is the issue. It's not really Joe Mixon. And I wanna like him. I want to try and sell high on him while I have him right now. But Joe Burrow, he's got his targets. He's fine with slinging the ball, and I feel like the Bengals honestly haven't even been really tested. So far, they played the Chargers. Chargers, in all rights, are a good defense. Cleveland, I still can't get a good feel for how they're going to be yet. Philly, they're all right again, but the Jags is the team that he should have beat up on, and of course he took advantage of that. But I still don't think he's going to be able to improve on this performance and string together maybe a couple 20-point performances. I think he's kind of dependent on touchdowns, which he's getting his goal line carries every single game, and he's gotten stuffed at the one so many times. So I got to go dud here.
All right. Absolutely. And now Beach, we're off to you. Same thing. Joe Mixon, stutter dud the rest of the season.
I'm going to fill in here and just complete the hat trick here. I'm going dud. As both Rob and Tyler mentioned, I mean, this is a guy that he should be he should be a 1A back in Cincinnati, and he should be putting up numbers like he did on Sunday against Jacksonville every week. As you alluded to, Ben, his first couple, or I think it might have been Rob, his first couple of steps are side, and back. I mean, the offensive line is a big question. It's been that way in Cincinnati as long as I can remember over the last 5-6 years. I mean, you look at his attempts per game. I mean, he had 19 carries week 1 against a Chargers team for 69 yards, followed up by 16 for 46 yards against Cleveland. And I mean, that was another game that, at the time, 2 teams that are considered the bottom of the barrel as far as the NFL talent is concerned. A Philadelphia team that just picked up their first win of the season on Sunday against the 49ers. I mean, the Bengals probably should have won that game if, they could find a way to punch it in with a couple of chances later on in that game, and giving Mixon the chance to carry the ball a little bit more and see him produce. You like to see him come away with a win there, but I haven't seen enough out of him through 4 weeks, and I think yesterday may be his highlight week of the season.
Awesome. Yeah, great take there. Not much more for me to say. Obviously, this game's about you guys. Just a quick update on the scoring right now. We have one player left. I do have a overtime player tiebreaker if we need. We have Beach at 8 points, Rob at 9 points, Tyler with 11 points. And now it will be Tyler's turn to go first. The last player, stutter dud the rest of the season. Drafted with promise, slow start to the year, injury, came back this week, played well. DJ Chark, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tyler, stutter dud the rest of the season.
I am going with stud. He finally led the team in targets with 9. And the first 2 weeks he was getting overshadowed by the other receivers, and I had no idea why, and now the injury makes perfect sense. He looked like he was able to bounce back from the injury. He's still a good red zone target for Minshew, and Minshew is absolutely slinging the ball. And the Jaguars are a team, they're not gonna have the greatest record this year, let's be honest. They're gonna be behind in a lot of games, looking to Chark's way, and as long as he stays healthy and leads the team in targets, they are just going to feed him. And the 2 scores this week is huge for him. And I am absolutely all aboard DJ Chark, and I think he's going to be a stud.
Awesome. Beach, we'll go to you next. DJ Chark, stutter dud the rest of the way.
Yeah, I'm buying in on DJ Chark. I think this is another guy that suffers from the play of his quarterback. I know Rob's a big Gardner Minshew guy, but there are times where Minshew shines and he can put up 250, 275 in a game and throw for a couple of touchdowns, and more often than not, two of those 3 touchdowns or attempts are going to be headed towards Chark's way. On Sunday in a loss, I mean, he had 8 catches on 9 targets. That's a pretty productive Sunday afternoon. He averaged 11.9 yards per catch. He had a long of 22. You look back to week 3 against Tennessee in a loss. He was 4 for 4 on 2 weeks ago in week 2. He was 4 for 4 for 84 yards. He had a long of 21. Couldn't find the end zone, but he had a long catch of 45 yards in that one. Again, I think if he can get good play out of his quarterback and continues to pull in a few more of those targets that come his way, I'm buying in on DJ Chark.
All right, yeah, for sure. Good analysis. Might need to take off a point for time constraint. No, I'm just kidding. Rob, that leaves you, DJ Chark, stutter dud the rest of the way.
Now complete the hat trick the opposite way and go stud as well. I obviously love Gardner Minshew, and as with Gardner Minshew being good this year, I mean, like you said, 351 yards this week, 275 last week, 339 the week before. He's also throwing 45 times, 42 times, and 40 times. I mean, regardless of if he's completing over half, that's still a ton of times to throw the ball. And as we know, we talk about game script all the time on this podcast. The Jaguars are going to be behind in most of the games they play all season. I rarely see, the only time they're ahead this year was obviously against Indianapolis, and obviously then he throws less because actually we're ahead. But I don't see them ever ahead the rest of the season. So Gardner Minshew's going to sling it. Chark is his number 1 guy, even with rookie Laviska Shenault kind of breaking out every here and there. Keelan Cole looks decent, catches a few touchdowns, but Chark being fully healthy and back as he was this week, we saw what he produced, 2 touchdowns, 95 yards. I mean, I can't see Gardner not just slinging the ball. That's what he loves to do, just toss it around. They're going to be behind. They're going to have to throw it. And Chark is the number 1 guy once they start throwing it. And now that he's fully healthy, I just see it up. I see this week over and over again. Do you get 2 touchdowns? Probably not. But the yardage isn't target. I see this just every week from now on with him, just with them losing every game.
Yeah, awesome. And I definitely agree with you. I was hoping you got one more chunk of information in there because I have you and Tyler at a tie right now. Beach, unfortunately, I have you with 13 points, Rob and Tyler with 14 points. Rob got a lot of points there for the Keelan Cole comparison and then the game script talk. So my last player down to Rob and Tyler. Rob, you went last, so you can go first here. Traquan Smith, New Orleans Saints. Stud or dud the rest of the way?
I'm regretfully going to say dud. The only reason I say regretfully is I actually spent some money, picked him up last week in another league. So I was actually really high on him. Michael Thomas is a guy that's going to battle back from injury, and the fact that the Saints have actually held Thomas back again makes me think that he's going to be fully healthy when he comes out, and then a fully healthy Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara running all cylinders. There's just not enough, even with a good offense in New Orleans. It's just not enough to go around. Traquan Smith is going to become the longer mid to long range threat. As we know, Drew Brees can't throw mid to long range anymore. From what we've seen, Michael Thomas is going to be hitting those slants. He's going to be the one that's catching those Traquan Smith passes. So that I see him becoming like a longer option, and I don't think Drew Brees is going to look his way. It's going to be all Alvin Kamara, all Michael Thomas, and I think he's going to fully come back from injury healthy now because they keep holding him out longer and longer. So I just see the Saints. And the Saints don't look that good either. I just don't think there's enough play to spread the ball around. I think Traquan Smith, unfortunately, is a dud. Someone I'm going to keep on my bench just in case if Michael Thomas goes down again. But with a healthy Michael Thomas, I can't see there to be enough production out of him.
And then Tyler, same question to you. Traquan Smith after his game this week, stud or dud the rest of the way for the win?
I am 100% on board with him being a dud. He is the offense for the Saints is clearly run through Alvin Kamara right now. And when Michael Thomas gets back, I think Traquan Smith is going to be next to irrelevant. I mean, this week, Traquan Smith, 4 targets, 4 catches, 2 touchdowns. That's just super efficient, and there's no way he keeps up that pace. If he doesn't have those 2 touchdowns, then he only finishes the game with 54 yards, and that's just a very mediocre game for a wide receiver. And I think Emmanuel Sanders is going to start getting the ball some more too. They're going to try and work him more in the offense. I honestly don't even think I would keep Traquan Smith on my bench with Michael Thomas back. Yeah, there's always the possibility of the injury, but I think this is the best game he's going to have all year with those 2 touchdowns. So he is definitely a dud for me.
All right. Awesome.
I prefer him over Sanders though for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's a close.
I just don't like the way Sanders plays. He's dropped too many, but
yeah, definitely.
All right, yeah, awesome. Thanks for the input, boys. Tyler, you did make some of the same points that Rob make, but you did bring up stats from this week and prior week. So I'm going to give you the win on this one for that because Rob did not mention stats.
Thank you.
So Tyler, you will be the first victor of the year. And how this is going to work moving forward, I'm going to keep track of who wins, and basically I want it to be like Rob and Tyler kind of as a team, but separately against whoever our guest is. So right now the boys are one guest each. Although we thank you for playing. Unfortunately, you couldn't get you the dub this week. Great input by all of you.
You win some, you lose some.
That's right. Now, quickly before we jump into the games, I want to talk about some injuries this week and some replacements that are in line to replace them. Just 2 quick guys here. Obviously, big names. Rob, I'll start with you because this kind of directly impacts you. Austin Eckler going down with the hamstring and the knee injury, set to miss some time. Obviously, you immediately want to say Joshua Kelly's in line, but how are you feeling about this backfield moving forward?
I think the thing people are overlooking is the fact that what's his name is going to come back healthy. I can't think of Justin Jackson is going to come back healthy. The Joshua Justin Jackson. Jeez. All the J names. I was combining them all in my head, but no. So I think people overlook the fact that he's supposed to be back healthy. Either this week. I think he's practicing this week from what I saw. So he is the pass catcher. So he's most likely going to replace the Eckler role. I mean, we've already talked about each week the fact that Joshua Kelly, up until maybe last week, was getting his carries each week. I mean, it's not like Joshua Kelly wasn't getting looked at. So I don't think his role is going to change too much. I think what they're going to try to do is bring Justin Jackson in and try to replace how Eckler played. So yes, I think it does bring up the value a little bit because Eckler does take some carries, and I think Justin Jackson's really just going to be pass catching. However, overall, I don't think it changes too much on the Chargers backfield. For Joshua Kelly's sake, I don't think it makes him that much better. But who knows, if Justin Jackson comes back and he's not completely healthy, then obviously Joshua Kelly becomes like a number 1 guy and it is going to do everything around. I don't see anyone taking that from him. But He'll have his carries. For me as Eckler, I'm just happy that it doesn't seem to be the rest of the season. Looks like they're going to bring him back around week 10 because they have a bye week 10, and so he'll be fully healthy after that. Be back for fantasy playoffs. So that's it I care about.
I was going to say, yeah, you're really happy to see him back for fantasy playoffs. The other guy I want to talk about briefly before we jump into the games is Nick Chubb. Beach, I'll go to you with this one. Obviously, looked like originally like an ankle injury, but they're saying it's a knee injury. He's going to be placed on the injured reserve. The unquestionable backup, Kareem Hunt, is going to be coming in and taking over. How are you feeling about this backfield moving forward?
There's a lot of names as far as the running game is concerned. I mean, you look at a guy like Dontrell Hilliard. I mean, he's only played in one game. He put up 19 yards, but with the injury, there could be a chance for him to kind of step up and fill a little bit of a hole. Who knows how much of a hole? I would expect, a bulk of the carries here to continue to fall Chubb's way. Kareem Hunt's way, excuse me. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Chubb up to this point averages 7.2 yards a carry. And it was one of those things yesterday where, despite putting up 49 points, a lot of that came through the air, especially courtesy of the OBJ and Baker Mayfield connection, who really seemed to have it going on yesterday. And like I said earlier on, I think, again, a lot of this is going to come down to the play of the quarterback and how confident the coaching staff of the Cleveland Browns is in the ability to want to rely on a back in Hilliard who hasn't really done a whole heck of a lot to this point in the season.
Yeah, and I think even before the Chubb injury, excuse me, I'm a big handcuff kind of guy when it comes to running backs, and I think Hunt, is arguably one of the best, or was arguably one of the best handcuffs in the league. I had him on my bench and I traded him, but I think, especially this year for running backs, handcuffs are so valuable. You get Hunt up there with Latavius Murray, Tony Pollard, those kind of guys. And, when the lead guy goes down like this, they're automatically thrust into a high role. I wouldn't say Hunt's at the, polished RB1 role, but he's certainly a high RB2. Given the way this offense operates. Tyler, I don't know if you have any further thoughts on Kareem Hunt either, or other running backs that could be slotted in for Nick Chubb.
Yeah, absolutely. Hunt's going to be the main guy. I know Johnson had 13 rushes for 95 yards, but I think that was due to kind of game script and they were up already. Hunt's definitely going to be the main guy. But let me just read some stats to you real quick that I find very entertaining.
Please do.
Cleveland Browns, Johnson had 13 rushes, 95 yards. Kareem Hunt, 11 for 71. Then if we go to the Chargers backfield, we have Justin Jackson, 6 rushes, 9 yards. Joshua Kelly, 9 rushes for 7 yards. That's just an absolute flip on the guys. And confident for Cleveland, not so confident for the Chargers backfield.
I was surprised by D'Ernest Johnson. I was watching the game, and all of a sudden I heard D'Ernest. I was like, I thought they were going to say like D'Ernest backup, like just like the Ernest, like the word Ernest was. I thought they were going to say Kareem Hunt. Then I was like, oh, that guy's name is actually D'Ernest. I'd never heard of him. I mean, he had a great game, 7.3 yards a carry, but they like that power back. Maybe that's him, and they just keep Kareem Hunt in the same role. But it's interesting.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with those guys moving forward. But now we'll jump into our game recaps. Obviously, we recorded last Thursday during Thursday Night Football. We'll kind of finish up that recap now. It was the Broncos at the Jets. Broncos take this game 37-28. I think the big story here, I guess the Broncos the Broncos offense looked great. Melvin Gordon ran for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy had that monster Randy Moss catch.
That was nasty.
I know. It was a grown man catch for sure. Definitely making his presence known. Jets offense, and that's enough about that. Back to the Broncos. Ian, I'm going to go ahead and break down this game for us.
The Jets are going to Jets. I mean, the Jets SUCK. Suck. I mean, how much longer are Jets fans in the city of New York going to have to suffer before that organization goes ahead and makes a coaching change? I mean, we've heard for the last 3 weeks heading into Thursday Night Football that if the Jets lose on Thursday night, or if they lost on Thursday night against the Broncos, that Adam Gase was going to be shown the door. And immediately following the game, the Jets front office comes out and says, no, we're sticking with Adam Gase. And I mean, it's one of those things. You look ahead to their schedule. This week they got the Cardinals at home. Kyler Murray's going to probably run rampant on them. The following week they got to go out to the Chargers, and they got the Bills, and they got to go to KC, and then they come here to play the Pats, or the Pats go down there to play them on a Monday night. I'm willing to bet that Adam Gase doesn't make it to the Buffalo Bills game. As much as you want to sit here and say that the Broncos look great, and I mean, yeah, great for Brett Rippon, 19 of 31 for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, and with 3 picks. He had a QBR rating of 63.9 and a QBR rating of 67.6. I mean, that's pretty good for somebody who's coming in to play its first game. But at the same time, as much as I said, we want to sit here and take a look at how good the Broncos were, the Jets are just that much more terrible.
Yeah, I was going to say the bright spot for the Jets was probably the 3 interceptions that the defense had.
They got Crowder, too. He's the only guy that I am eyeing for fantasy football. 7 catches, 104 yards. I think he's very usable against subpar secondaries.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to touch upon quickly, and Rob, I want to hear what you have to say about this. Melvin Gordon, like I said earlier, 23 carries, 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We're not playing studs and duds again, but this is something... do you think he can continue to be trusted to get this type of value every week? Maybe not 2 touchdowns on 107 yards, but is he someone that you can comfortably start every week?
Yeah, I mean, he has no sort of like we were talking handcuffs. He has no handcuff in the backfield. I mean, Royce Freeman ran it 3 times, and then the other 6 rushes were the quarterback, and they went for a net 4 yards total. So he had 23 carries. I think he's going to be a lot of the carries. I'm just afraid he's kind of like a Joe Mixon, but like less talent, a little bit better offensive line. He's going to get the carries. He only had 4.7 yards a carry, which is obviously good, but it's good against the Jets. It's tough. I think he's definitely someone you want to have on your roster because he is the guy there. I think the number one guy at any team, like if someone's this clear as the number one guy, it's worth having. So I think he's good, but I think he's going to be a start-sit based on his matchup each week, because I don't think Denver, unless they get everyone back healthy, is going to be a good offense going forward. But Drew Lock could come back, but now Noah Fant's out for potentially week-to-week basis. So that offense isn't going to be firing on all cylinders like this each week. So it's a starter sit based on matchup for me rather than just a consistent all season.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the input there. The next game I want to talk about is the Saints at the Lions. Saints take this game 35-29. I think the big story here that I really want to talk about is the backfield. Obviously, Alvin Kamara is Alvin Kamara. And we talked last week. I think, Tyler, you mentioned that Latavius Murray could really be a flyer this week. And, I mean, that definitely was the case. He actually outscored Kamara fantasy-wise. The touches were still there for both of them, 19 touches to 14 touches for Murray. Kamara had a touchdown, and Murray had the 2 touchdowns. And then obviously we talked about Traquan Smith had 4 receptions for 54 yards and 2 touchdowns. We kind of already, addressed him moving forward, so we don't need to dig any more into that. But Tyler, what do you kind of feel? I don't want to ask Rob because Rob's biased, but what do you kind of feel about this backfield moving forward?
To me, it's still Alvin Kamara's backfield without a doubt. He is that team. It's nice to get Latavius Murray in there when he needs breaks. But Latavius Murray did get a couple of goal line carries there, which makes me a little worried as Kamara, but he's just so talented that Kamara's the guy. Murray you can start if you're desperate, depending on the matchup. Like if the Saints are playing a top run defense, you're not even considering starting Latavius Murray.
And then Drew Brees, 246 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, kind of average game we'd expect out of him. For the Lions, Matthew Stafford, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns to 3 different people. Kenny Golladay, DeAndre Swift, and TJ Hawkinson. I wanted to focus on Swift a little because I know I've traded him today. I'm not trying to trash talk him because I traded him, but he only had 4 carries for a majority of the game, and he was kind of not really there until that touchdown kind of saved his day. Rob, I know we kind of talked about this before we recorded, but what do you feel about this backfield moving forward?
Yeah, they don't seem that interested in getting DeAndre Swift the ball in the backfield, like you said, 4 carries. Adrian Peterson does seem to be their guy. DeAndre Swift is just a handcuff, but is really the pass catching option. This week, finally caught that touchdown pass, 4 catches as well. Like, I mean, when you're running back with as many catches as rushes, that kind of says everything you need to know about your use in the backfield. Adrian Peterson, for some reason, at this age, is still that guy. He's very good. And at this point, DeAndre Swift, you're only stashing on your roster, probably to never start, and only stashing for the potential keeper value, depending on where you've selected in your league. I think AP, this is probably his last year with the Lions, and DeAndre Swift get more carries and carry on. So that's always good. At least DeAndre Swift is actually solidified as the number 2 guy and the pass catching guy. But yeah, no, outside of keeper value, I'm not really looking at DeAndre Swift. Unfortunately, because I did draft him in another league as well. That I was hoping he'd take over that backfield, but he is not.
And then Beach, I want Beach, Ian, whatever. I want
I don't care.
I want your input on this. TJ Hawkinson has 2 touchdowns on the year now, 15 receptions. Is he someone that you can start comfortably every week moving forward with Golladay back? Marvin Jones is kind of non-existent yesterday, so is he? I mean, we know he's a big part of the offense, but how do you feel about starting him on a weekly basis moving forward?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, looking at it, it's tough. Again, you're looking at a Lions team in general that, I don't know. It's one of those things where the coaching staff needs to kind of come up with a game plan each week to find a way to get more guys involved, because you're not going to be able to rely on Kenny Golladay for 40 out of 45 pass attempts, because the team's going to find ways. They're going to end up double teaming him. They're going to be able to shut him down. And then when it comes time to that, they're going to load the box, put 8 up on the front line and dare you to run the ball, because they know that Matt Stafford doesn't really have any other legitimate receiving threats aside from Kenny Golladay. So I don't know. Hawkinson's one of those kind of guys that you kind of keep an eye on, and maybe if there's, a favorable matchup that the Lions have going forward. I mean, looking at their schedule, they got the Jaguars and Falcons the next 2 weeks. So those are 2 teams that, maybe you take a little bit more stock in and maybe put them in the second flex role if you're in a league that has 2 flex spots like ours. But other than that, I really wouldn't look into Hawkinson a whole heck of a lot. I mean, he's got 15 catches for 185 yards, just 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's productive, but it's nothing that really opens your eyes each and every week.
Yeah, and those stats are good for tight end. Tight end 9 as of this week. Obviously, we have a couple more games to go tonight. I kind of want to shift gears into the Chargers at the Buccaneers now. Tom Brady, looking like the Tom Brady of old, as much as it hurts to say. Still Tom Brady. Led a great comeback. They took the game 38-31. I want to start with the Chargers here. Justin Herbert, 290 yards and 3 touchdowns. Looks pretty good again. The only thing I wanted to question was, Keenan Allen didn't really have a big participation in this game. There are a lot of guys you wouldn't expect to catch touchdowns, catching touchdowns. Guyton, Parham, and Johnson. And
I
it just
see here, every single guy that had a touchdown on the day, that was their only catch.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and that's why I thought it was so funny. I was looking into these guys. One of them came from the XFL, which is obviously not playing right now. They just got acquired by Dwayne Johnson and Danny Garcia, so they're supposed to be back next year. But anyway, we could talk about that another time. Another story for this offense is Austin Eckler leaving. Obviously, we talked about that and the implications that'll have on the rest of the backfield moving forward. Changing gears to the Buccaneers, though, Tom Brady, looking like Tom Brady, the Patriots, pulling comebacks out of nowhere, 369 yards, 5 touchdowns to 5 different receivers, mind you. Rob, I kind of want to converse with you on this. Mike Evans touchdown, Scotty Miller touchdown, OJ Howard touchdown, Keyshawn Vaughn touchdown, Cameron Brate touchdown. How are you feeling about Tom Brady? I mean, he's showing that he looks fine. The arm looks great. He's still spreading the ball around like he always has. So, what do you got?
I think it's the prototypical Tom Brady game. A bunch of touchdowns and no one duplicating. Like you said, 5 different receivers with the touchdowns. Chargers, we already talked about too. We actually have looked like a good defense too, which I think this means even more because the Chargers, remember 2 weeks ago, held the Chiefs to overtime and actually made the Chiefs offense look a little slowed them down quite a bit. So to see Tampa Bay, who's been a struggling offense, even though they're 3-1, the offense wasn't firing with Tom Brady yet. And this seems to be a breakout game. A lot of guys, Mike Evans, like you said, seems to like him. And to note that they still haven't had Chris Godwin really back yet. I mean, you slot in Chris Godwin, this could have been 6 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns. Like, there's just a lot of receiving options now going forward for them, which is almost bad for fantasy because Tom Brady does spread the ball around. But if they're gonna have games this good, then everyone was startable. OJ Howard was startable. Well, OJ Howard's now out for the rest of the year, but
I was just gonna say you get guys, tight ends like OJ Howard and Cameron Brate. We're not even talking about Rob Gronkowski in this discussion. But yeah, OJ Howard ruptured Achilles. He'll be out for the year, so that's a weapon loss for Brady. Although he should have Godwin back for Week 6 because they have the quick Week 5 turnaround Thursday night. So I'm expecting to see Chris Godwin back for Week 6. I think it would be the smart move to hold him out. Tyler, I want to kind of talk to you about this because I don't know if you have any other thoughts on this receiver core. You were a Chris Godwin faithful at one point. Obviously, Brady's our guy, so I want to let you get your word in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a promising wide receiver core for everybody in fantasy. I think Scotty Miller's emerging as the guy, even though he has some drops this year. Brady keeps going back to him. I mean, Evans had that shaky game with the 2-2-2 line where he had 2 catches, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he bounces back and Brady loves giving him some 50-50 balls and just lets him jump up and make a play on it. So there's no real worries for me. The only receiver that I'm really concerned about right now is Ronald Jones because he's going to lose Brady's trust soon because he's dropping so many passes, and I don't know what's going to happen when Fournette comes back. I don't know who's going to be the main pass catcher, third down back. Obviously, there's Vaughn is getting involved in the passing game, but Ronald Jones had too many for me, and I don't think Brady's going to trust him much.
Yeah, I think we're kind of seeing what we're used to with Tom Brady, stretching the field, making comeback wins. I don't really think we need to talk any more about that.
Fun fact on the Chargers side, that Donald Parham, it showed that he scored the touchdown, said his name that he scored a touchdown. But then if you clicked into the game and saw who scored the fantasy points, it said fantasy points, 7 points for unknown player. So literally they didn't even have him in like the system as like a fantasy player. So I don't think you could have picked him up if you wanted to. Not that you would have, but I don't think he was I don't think he's an available player up until he scored the touchdown. I don't know if they actually have added him since then. I was going to look it up, but yeah, now he's available. He's a tight end, but he literally showed up as unknown player.
That kind of week, and obviously, go ahead, Beach.
I just think one big thing yesterday that a lot of people were kind of talking about in this Charger game is it turned late in that first half. Right, the Chargers stopped the Bucs on a I think it was like a 4th and 2, 4th and 1, deep in Charger territory instead of opting to kick a field goal, and they got the ball back, and then immediately first play from scrimmage, the next possession, they fumbled it and turned it over. And we've seen it time and time again up here in New England. You can't give Tom Brady extra possessions, especially late in the half, and especially where they were getting the ball to start the second half. Brady lives for those double scores. He loves to have the opportunity to get the last score of the first half and the first score of the second half. But you guys mentioned Scotty Miller. He's kind of in that same boat as Brady. He's a 6th-round pick in 2019, 208, drafted at a Bowling Green, playing out of the MAC. I mean, he didn't get a whole lot of talk coming out of coming out of the combine, and I mean, obviously for good reason, seeing that he went in the 6th round. If he can emerge as another legitimate receiving threat, along with, the likes of Chris Godwin and Tyler Johnson down the road, watch out for this Buccaneers offense. A lot of people have kind of talked about heading into the start of this season.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think, obviously there was a lot to talk about in this game. And I'm, excuse me, I'm glad we had the time to talk about all of it. Next game I want to talk about is the Jaguars at the Bengals.
Let's talk about this game. We
big
covered
game.
it with Mixon, Chark, and everything. I don't know if I just don't know if there's any players left to talk about.
No, that's what I was going to
Robinson.
say. This one's kind of a, we kind of dug into this one as much as we need to. Minshew, another big day, 351 yards. Couple touchdowns. Chark, we talked about. Mixon, we talked about. Joey B went for 300 yards again. I just feel like this kid's coughing up 300-yard games, or everyone in the league's coughing up 300-yard games. We can move right into the next game. Vikings at Houston. Big news for the Texans. They obviously fired Bill O'Brien today, we found out.
Long overdue.
Long time coming.
Left them in a very rough position. No first or second round draft picks next year. No DeAndre Hopkins. I'm sure there's other things we haven't found out about yet.
The highest payroll in the league.
That too. But to kind of dig into the game a little bit, Dalvin Cook, 8 as usual, 27 carries, 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Madison had a touchdown as well, kind of stolen from him on the goal line. Adam Thielen, 8 receptions, 114 yards and a touchdown. Justin Jefferson, another 100-yard game. That's back-to-back 100-yard games for both of their receivers. So maybe Kirk Cousins is kind of finding a stride after a slow start. Rob, what do you kind of see from this offense moving forward?
Yeah, as I mentioned last week, I dropped Justin Jefferson, then picked him back up. Didn't start him, obviously, but happy to see that he got another 100 yards. 4 catches is scary, but that's kind of what I expect. I expect Thielen to be the main guy. Look at Rudolph if you need like a throw here or there, and then Justin Jefferson's going to be like that long threat, big play guy, and I'm happy to see that. So is Kirk Cousins going to be good? We'll see. I mean, they have a favorable matchup next week against the Seahawks, who just getting roasted through the air. And then the Falcons, which also don't have a defense, and the Packers, which have been in high-scoring games. So the next couple weeks will be very telling for this Minnesota team, a team that I didn't think was bad enough to be 0-3, and then 0-4. So now they're 1-3, get that win. And I don't know if they could pull off a win against the next 3, but they're going to pull off a lot of yards. So, and if they don't, that just shows, I think, where they're at if they can't against these 3 bad pass defenses coming up. But I'm excited for Justin Jefferson. I know you had just shipped Thielen out, but for some good value there. So I think those 2 specifically have some big work ahead of them.
And then Tyler, talk to me about the Texans offense. Deshaun Watson, 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Will Fuller on Rob's bench, 6 receptions, 108 yards and a touchdown. Kenny Stills had a touchdown on the day. Obviously getting rid of their coach today, got to assume this is going to create some sort of spark. They're 0-4 now. So what do you think is going to happen moving forward? Do they incorporate David Johnson more, Duke Johnson? What do you think happens with this moving forward? And Ian, feel free to chime in after Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting for a big David Johnson game. Hopefully the new coach likes him as much as Bill O'Brien, but I mean, Bill O'Brien traded DeAndre Hopkins for him, so maybe his usage will go down a little bit. He had 2 catches this week, 16 rushes, 18 touches is enough for me. He's just got to get a touchdown in there, and then it turns into a good game. And for Will Fuller, man, oh man, is he just creating more trust issues with having over 100 yards and a touchdown. I don't know when I would be ready to start him. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. He's a great player, but you never know when he's going to get injured. You just never know. And I don't want to talk anymore about him because I don't have a good judgment on him.
You're going to look at Deshaun Watson right through the first 4 games of the season. 84 of 128 as far as passing numbers are concerned. That's a 65.6 completion percentage. He's got 3 interceptions and 6 touchdowns. That's not fantastic. I mean, I know it's only through 4 weeks of the season. If he continues this, he's projected for 24 and 12 TD to INT ratio. But I think getting rid of O'Brien could open up a lot of options for Watson and his ability to run this offense. We know that he's a dual threat out of the backfield. He can throw the ball as much as he's a weapon as far as running is concerned. It's just a question of whether or not he's going to be able to buy into this new coaching regime that's going to come in. It's one of those things where you're taking a look again at the Texans' upcoming schedule. Couple of games that kind of stand out to me, right? You got the Jaguars this week. That could be a good week for him to kind of get back on track and see what the offense can do following that. And I mean, luckily for them, they play in a AFC South division that isn't exactly the greatest. You get the Jaguars twice. You still have 2 against the Colts, and then you got 2 against the Titans. So, I mean, you still have all 6 divisional games. So there's a chance for them to kind of climb back in, but it's going to fall on the shoulders of Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And like I said earlier, I think there's going to be a big spark with the coaching change whenever that does happen. Even with the interim coach, hopefully they turn things around. Next game is the Seahawks at the Dolphins. I honestly kind of expected this to be more of a shootout. I guess it kind of was. I expected a lot more out of the Beard and Devontae Parker. They kind of saved it on yards. But anyway, Russell Wilson, 360 yards and 2 touchdowns, looked great again. Chris Carson had a big day, 80 yards and 2 touchdowns on 16 carries. DK Metcalf racked up a lot of yards. David Moore had the touchdown. Tyler Lockett was kind of quiet in this game. Rob, talk to me about this offense this week.
Yeah, it was. I think. 31-23 in the NFL this year doesn't seem like a shootout, but it is not a shootout. But it's a high scoring game. It's kind of what we thought a little bit. Seahawks obviously get the win. Russell Wilson still looks good. I thought the biggest thing was Tyler Lockett not being the guy, kind of looking like Tyler Lockett of a couple years ago, where you think he's gonna be good, you think he's gonna be like the main reception guy, and he just didn't really get it done. They found Greg Olsen a lot more. Stinks Travis Homer kind of stole a touchdown. It was again a situation where his only catch on the day was for a 3-yard touchdown. So it always kind of stinks when you have that. So I won't hold any judgment on Tyler Lockett this week. He bounced back next week, you assume, but it was always nice to see DK Metcalf continue to rack up 100-yard games. Thinks again that he didn't get the touchdown. David Moore got it, but really it's going to be those 3, David Moore, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett going forward with the play of the tight ends. But I think it's just a week that they didn't get as many touchdowns as we were expecting. Chris Carson did have 2, but not as many through the air as we've had. I mean, it's hard for Russell Wilson to throw 5 touchdowns a week. So take it for this week. Kind of what we thought. Easy win at the end of the day. The Beard did make it look close at the end, but it was really they made it look closer than it really was by the end of it.
Thanks for the -5.5 cover, though, Seattle. Much appreciated.
Yes, I agree. That was our lock.
Just want to interject here. The Patriots have pulled Brian Hoyer. Jarrett Stidham's now playing.
All right.
About time.
He's the reason why they're losing right now, solely. Pats are playing cheap so well, and Hoyer can't hang.
And Harris is having a good night too so far.
Yeah,
14 carries, 94 yards. That was a big run.
Yeah.
Sony Michel's gone in the offseason, 100%. Bum.
I think Sony's done.
Bum.
Yep.
I hate him. I don't like him, but
I agree with you guys.
What we're all thinking. So anyway, just real quick on the Dolphins offense, Fitzpatrick still put up 315 yards, had the rushing touchdown. Devontae Parker 110 yards on 10 receptions on great PPR day. That's all there really is to say there. And we
I'll hold judgment on Gaskin until they come back against them. They were down all day.
Yeah.
So you didn't get a lot of rushes.
Now we'll look at the Browns at the Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys?
Rob, if we could just insert a Stephen A. Smith gif here, that would.
I know. I need the just him walking with the cowboy hat on.
That would cover the.
How about them Cowboys?
With his chocolate chip cookies last night. The Browns put up 49 points on the Cowboys in Dallas to the Cowboys 38 points. This is the definition of a shootout. Baker Mayfield, 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jarvis Landry had the passing touchdown, and it was a really good pass. I even questioned whether Baker Mayfield could even make that pass himself. But it was a dime to Odell, and then obviously Odell, monster day. We talked about him in studs versus duds. He had a rushing touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns. Looked like the Odell from the Giants that we all know. Austin Hooper grabbed a touchdown. So, Baker Mayfield was just spreading it all over the field. The Browns offense was clicking. Obviously, Nick Chubb goes out. Kareem Hunt comes in and looks great, gets a touchdown. Nothing to really not like from the Browns this week. We could say they let up 38 points, but the Cowboys let up 49, so it's almost forgiven.
That was our good offense. Holding them to 38 is not too bad. And they had 14 going into the fourth quarter.
Yes, and then for the Cowboy side,
start for Stidham throws a pick immediately.
Does he have 2 throws in Patriots uniform, both for picks?
In the end zone too, flag though.
I haven't seen it yet,
continue.
But
yes. Anyway, like I was gonna say, Dak 500 yards on the day, 502 yards for 4 touchdowns. Amari Cooper looked great, 12 receptions, 134 yards and a touchdown. PPR dream right there. CeeDee Lamb, 2 touchdowns on the day, 79 yards. The Cowboys defense non-existent here. I think that's fair to say, giving up 49 points. I don't know if we really have anything
7
else.
yards on the ground.
Whoa. Yeah, Baker Mayfield only had 165 passing yards. That's nothing. And they still gave up 49.
I know. It was
like I said, the Dallas Cowboys defense can't stop a nosebleed.
That's a good analogy, I guess. I want to kind of cycle into the Cardinals at the Panthers game. Cardinals lose this one 21-31. Big story here was Kenyon Drake. This was supposed to be his, get right game. That did not happen. He was almost non-existent in the game yesterday. The Cardinals offense in general did not look great. Kyler Murray, only 133 yards, did have 3 touchdowns. Christian Kirk made a little mark in the end zone, and Chase Edmonds had a rushing touchdown as well, which is not good. Not a good look for Kenyon Drake. Rob, talk to me about this backfield, specifically Kenyon Drake, and he's not living up to his ADP. The draft capital used to get him is not paying off at all. Talk to me about him a little bit.
Yeah, this was the surprise of the weekend. Carolina, you blink and they were up 14 points in the first quarter. Not something we thought at all. Carolina hasn't looked good or bad really, but without CMC, even with Mike Davis performing well, I really thought Arizona, this was going to be a good game for him. Like you said, a get-right game for Kenyon Drake. I thought Kyler Murray was going to pop off. Kyler Murray had a day for himself. A good day. Didn't do anything poor, but didn't really go win them the game. So I know we keep saying this every week, but I want to hold off another week on Kenyon Drake because this was a game that they should have been leading and should have been leaning on him to just waste time. But then, like I said, they blink and they're down 14 points. How do you then game script for your running back? Got 13 carries. Didn't look good on those 13 carries, but again, they were carries when they're down. So it's just, I don't know. I want to reserve judgment because yes, Chase Edmonds received and caught a touchdown. Only had 4 rushes though, so it's not like they're taking rushes away from Kenyon Drake. But is the performance there to start him? I wouldn't, but I think he does need a get-right game, and I don't know when that's going to come on the schedule, but it's so hard to reserve judgment. We'll see. They have the Jets. This is the get-right game. This last week I'll even talk about Kenyon Drake. If he doesn't get a lot of points against the Jets, I'm done talking about him. I won't even mention him.
I was talking to Brian Ginge. We've talked about him before, about him this week and kind of how this was the get-right game. And Ginge was saying how they're playing Dallas in 2 weeks, and if he doesn't play him then that's when he's going to bench him. And I said, that's not the bench. This week was the bench. That week's the drop. If he doesn't make it happen, send him to waiver.
No, the Jets is the drop. I'll give him one more week to not drop him.
I would not drop him at all.
Jets is the drop. Dallas is what? Just not even who? Kenyon Drake who? For the Panthers, Mike Davis, another touchdown this week. Looked good on the ground, 84 yards. Teddy Bridgewater had 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. Panthers do end up taking this game 31-21. Next game I want to talk about is Ravens at Washington.
No call out for Robbie Anderson.
You can talk about Robbie Anderson if you want to talk about him.
Kyle and I called it last week, or last episode.
Still good. He's still good. That's all it is. He's the 8th ranked receiver. That's all we need to say. Still
Yep,
very
I think we
usable.
had the same discussion last week.
Tyler and I liked him a lot last week.
I could tell. Anything else you want to say about him?
No, all good. All good.
Can I go on to the next game now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the Baltimore Ravens went to Washington to take on the Washington football team. Lamar Jackson coming off the loss to the Chiefs last week. That was last week. Yes, it was last week. Ravens take this one 31-17. Lamar did not break 200 yards, did have 2 touchdowns and an interception. Robert Griffin III came in, threw 1 pass for 1 interception, so that was the end of that.
Led to a Washington touchdown that helped me hit the over. So
Okay.
thank you, Robert Griffin III.
Lamar Jackson did also have a touchdown on the ground. Mark Ingram made a little mark in the end zone this week. Mark Andrews, 2 touchdowns. The Ravens were rolling this week. Another, kind of a get right game for them after the loss to the Chiefs last week. Washington, though, Dwayne Haskins had, I guess, something to play for this week. He was told that if he didn't perform, he was going to be benched. He did have 314 yards, no touchdowns. There obviously wasn't a lot of scoring on the Washington side. As we've said all year, scary Terry McLaurin, always busy, 10 receptions, 118 yards, no touchdown.
Finally
But
healthy.
I mean, that's
Finally healthy.
still a great day from a PPR perspective. Rob, you're happy with him. Talk to me about this offense, though. Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, Dwayne Haskins. What are they looking like moving forward?
See Gibson get a touchdown because it was never going to be a productive day for him against the Ravens. Good defense, and we're always going to be in the lead and stuff like that. So it's never going to be a good day for Gibson, but for him to sneak out 46 yards and a touchdown, always nice. Dwayne Haskins didn't throw for a touchdown, like you said. Had a ton of yards. Did run for 1, though, so give him some credit there if that he got 1. I definitely think he's just way better than anything they have. I don't know what the coach is thinking, even trying to put that pressure on him. As he hasn't really been given a fair chance, in my opinion. They've just hated him from the start. I think he's really good. Finds Terry a lot. Gibson was good in the pass game as well. J.D. McKissick out of the backfield passing as well. He spread the ball around. 7 catches, 10 catches, 4 catches, 4 catches. It was a really good passing day for Dwayne Haskins, and I think it just shows there's actually some fantasy value in that offense. I don't think they're gonna win many games. Let's get that right. They're not gonna win many games, but from a fantasy standpoint, there's actually some good value in this fantasy team. I was wrong about Gibson 2 weeks ago. I didn't think there was much fantasy value there. He has some. I'm happy Terry's fully healthy and is going to get these 10 catches a game because they're just going to sling the ball around. But I'm really surprised that there's actually some decent fantasy value in that team, especially in that division as well.
Yeah, I think like we've said, I mean, Terry's always going to be consistent just because of sheer volume in a PPR format. Next game I want to look at is the Giants at the Rams. Rams take this one 17-9 at home in SoFi Stadium. We'll start with the Giants offense. Graham Gano. Now we'll talk about the Rams offense. Jared Goff, 200 yards and a touchdown. I was so frustrated this week. I took Darrell Henderson on a flyer. He had a great week last week, looked strong the week before that. Malcolm Brown, obviously, with the big week 1, but it looked like Darren Henderson was the guy. This game did not go in a running back favor for the Rams. I mean, Henderson had 9 carries, Brown had 8 carries. I don't even want to go into the yardage because it doesn't
say I told you so.
matter.
I was saying that last week. I wasn't sold on Henderson yet.
I
Makers next week. Oof.
Say it again.
Cam Makers back next week.
I mean, I've said all along. I think Darrell Henderson's the guy still because they've had Malcolm Brown. They knew what they can get from him. They drafted Darrell Henderson with good draft capital, and then the next year they take Cam Akers with good draft capital. So I mean, I don't understand what Sean McVay is doing here. I mean, he's definitely sticking to his word when he said he was going to do a running back by committee. Very frustrating as someone who's had Brown and Henderson as flyers this week. I never started Brown, but I had faith in Henderson this week. Beach, I want to hear from you on this. You're a Cam Akers owner, looking like he's going to return for week 5. What do you make of this backfield moving forward?
Well, you mentioned it, right? McVay's certainly going to stick to his guns and the running back by committee. Henderson has shown a little bit of promise. Through 4 games, he's got 43 carries for 223 yards. Malcolm Brown's got 45 carries for 128 yards. But certainly it shows that Henderson has gotten the bulk of the carries since Akers went down. But I took Akers for what I saw out of him.
Flopping around out here. Sorry to interject. Second time he's done it this game.
Took Akers just because I saw, with me being a Florida State fan, I saw what he could do. During his time in Tallahassee, he's got the potential to take over a backfield. He has the ability to find the smallest of holes and make big chunk plays out of them. Certainly losing him early on in the season, especially in his rookie campaign, wasn't great. But I think, if he's back and he's 100% healthy, I just hope the Rams aren't rushing him back just to get him back for playing sake. I think that he does show potential here, and certainly for me, I hope to see that potential, because my running back core could certainly use a boost right now.
Yeah, I think definitely something for you to monitor moving forward. Can't say I'll be starting Darrell Henderson anytime soon. Next game I want to look at is the Bills at the Raiders. Josh Allen just continuing his campaign, 288 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, a rushing touchdown. Great touchdown pass to reception by Cole Beasley. Looked painful on the way down. Can't say I'd be getting up from that very quickly. But I guess that's why they're in the NFL. So the Bills take this one on the road, 30-23. Derek Carr, 311 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't know if you got, and feel free to chime in if you guys remember this guy, Nelson Aguilar. Had a touchdown.
Not dropping every pass. Not like he used to.
He caught this pass, and it was for a touchdown, so we'll give him that. Outside of that, though, I mean, not a lot to talk about in this game. Rob, I don't know if you have anything to add on your Bills, or your Josh Allen, I should say.
Oh, so good. No, he is incredible. I mean, got a running touchdown as well. Because it's funny because with Zach Moss being out, the goal line carries are basically Josh Allen's goal line carries to take, because Singletary is a small guy. But no, he spreads the ball around a lot. I don't know what to make of the wide receivers. Diggs seems to be a standout now. He got 115 yards, no touchdown, but a lot of receptions for 115 yards. Seems to be the guy. Foley, at this point, John Brown actually looked good. Cole Beasley, like you said, amazing catch. Cole Beasley is just a gritty slot receiver and just like really good guy to have there for Josh Allen. But yeah, the offense, they firing on all cylinders. I mean, the Vegas defense isn't incredible, but I mean, that's 4 straight games now. We've seen the Bills put up numbers, so that's just something to look for. I get as many people in this offense as you can, especially if Zach Moss stays out. Singletary is another good option because he is good out of the backfield catching it, and was shifty and got a touchdown himself. So there's no bad parts of this offense from what I've seen.
Yeah, I think Zach Moss, we were talking about Zach Moss earlier, not really much you can trust for him, and he was actually injured. Devin Singletary looks fine to hold the job for now. Next game is the Colts at the Bears. This one was kind of a snoozer for a little while. Not much going on. Mo Alley Cox, another touchdown on the day. Allen Robinson looked great. 7 receptions, 101 yards and a touchdown. A Moss touchdown. He mossed his defender.
Late touchdown, though.
It was hey, listen, it's still out of
They all count. They all count.
They all count, and it was a great
in the garbage time since the start of his career with the Jags.
Listen, I will fight you over this. First of all, second of all, Nick Foles did not look great for like the first half of the game, so a lot of the blame can be put on that. Say it again.
Mitch, I think it's Mitch time again.
No, it's not Mitch time again. Don't say that. Nick Foles still ended the day 249 yards and a touchdown. Did have an interception. I really, what I think they should have done is they should have started Mitch Trubisky and then taken Foles off the bench after the first snap, because the first snap of the game, because he just always seems to play better coming off the bench. That's my diagnosis for this offense moving forward. Just start Trubisky and then bring Foles in after like the first possession. I'll be fine with that. Last game we're going to talk about here, Sunday Night Football, Eagles at the 49ers. Obviously, Jimmy G still injured. Nick Mullins in 200 yards for him and a touchdown, did throw 2 interceptions. Jerick McKinnon, another rushing touchdown, looked good for what he was asked to do this week. Brandon Ayuk had a very nice rushing touchdown. I don't know if you guys saw that. Did like a hurdle flip type of thing over the defender of this whole game. George Kittle coming back, looking like an absolute beast. 15 receptions, 183 yards, and a touchdown. This 49ers offense, though they lost, I mean, I kind of highlighted all the good they looked this week, how good they looked this week. Kind of surprising they lost to the Eagles based on how the Eagles looked yesterday, especially since Zach Ertz was non-existent. Miles Sanders had a quiet day. Tyler, kind of walk me through this game here.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles did whatever they had to do to win, and it wasn't looking good right off the rip. I mean, George was rampant their defense, looking like a men among boys, basically, and nobody on the Eagles offense really stood out, but Carson Wentz got it done. I mean, he had another Carson Wentz play where he somehow got a rushing touchdown out of it, and he's pretty good for his not much talent on the Eagles team. I mean, yeah, Zach Ertz had 9 yards in total. That's just not going to get it done. And Fulgham, some guy that I've never heard of before this game.
Fulgham.
Yeah, he got the touchdown pass from Wentz, and granted, Nick Mullins gave the Eagles a pick six. Couldn't have made it any easier. Lofted the pass about 5 yards right into the Eagles, and that was the difference for me. I mean, the Eagles offense still doesn't look great. I'm not big on Miles Sanders just because he lost me last season. But for him, he had a decent game. Didn't get the ball as much as he should have, but he was productive enough with 46 yards. That's just the 49ers defense. I think that's just going to slow him down. So tough read on the Eagles. Nobody on that offense besides Sanders. I would want to own Ertz. I would start, but he's starting to get a little scary.
I think one thing here that we need to look at too is this is a Philadelphia team that sits in first place in an absolute dumpster fire of an NFC East.
True.
1-2-1 through 4 games, and they could easily be. I'll definitely give them 2-2. They could possibly be 3-1 because I really think should have won that game week 1 against Washington. Obviously, they didn't show up week 2 against the Rams when the Rams just went in and absolutely blew their doors off of them early, and that game was over before it even got to halftime. But with that said, Tyler already mentioned it. This is a 49ers defense that is just suffering right now. Obviously, the big name up front is Joey Bosa. To lose him this early in the season, and I mentioned it in the piece that I put together for the podcast. They're going to easily go from Super Bowl representative for the NFC to possibly being in the running for a top 5 pick, certainly in next year's draft. It sucks to see them, as much as we were Brady guys here, I do like to see Jimmy G kind of do well and succeed. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's in the cards this year for the 49ers.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think it's just they did have Deebo Samuel back this week. He had, very little production as you'd expect coming off injury. Raheem Mostert was out again this week. So just a lot of missing pieces on the offensive and defensive side. If Robert, Tyler, you guys don't have anything to add for this game, I think.
Oh my God!
What's up?
Julian
Kittle
Edelman
saying
just
he
gave
did.
the Chiefs a touchdown. The Pats have done everything they can to lose this game. Should we jump right to it
today?
Should we jump right to this game?
I just want to say also, that's the second pass that's gone off Julian Edelman's hands today. Luckily,
Yeah, he's looked bad.
The first one was picked up by a Patriots receiver. But yes, obviously these 2 games tonight, New England at Kansas City, almost not played. due to a COVID scare. Cam Newton confirmed positive, but no one else on the team tested positive, which is obviously, what we hope to hear. Currently in the fourth quarter, 8 minutes left. The score just changed, so I don't want to tell you the score because Tyrann Mathieu just got a pick six. But not
huge for me playing the KC defense.
We got
so
the three blind mice out there for refs again between the Pats and the Chiefs. We love having them out there.
Pretty sure Bucker just missed that. Nope, it went through just over the net. So
he missed the one before, yeah.
Just like always, but 8:48 left. New England down 10-26 to Kansas City and Kansas City. Obviously, the story here is Cam Newton not playing. Brian Hoyer starts the game, and now Jarrett Stidham is in, and just nothing seems to be working. Edelman seems off his game.
Face.
Say it again.
Honestly,
that was right at Edelman's face. I don't even know how he dropped it without it hitting him.
And
Edelman didn't play at all. Edelman didn't play at all in the first quarter.
Hopefully, I'm not being too biased right now either. But Mahomes looks really bad. He should easily have 2 picks, both dropped by. One was McCourty in the first quarter. Another one of these were like breadbasket ones, not contested catches that he dropped. And it's
Tyler,
like shovel passes.
And like you alluded to, right? The referees are certainly helping out here a little bit. I mean, on that last Chiefs drive, Mahomes had gone out of bounds and he was on his way down, and Dietrich Wise was trying to hold him up. Lawrence Guy was in there as well, and Mahomes just flops down to the ground, and he somehow the refs fall for it, and they bought in.
I didn't know the refs played fantasy.
That's not the first.
We don't need to talk about him. I didn't know we got fantasy points for the refs.
Oh, we do. We need to talk about Pats Chiefs refs because they're dummies. But Tyreek Hill,
they saved us from they saved us from losing by 30. That's about it.
The Pats are trying to lose this game right now for sure. They're dropping everything. But
on a fantasy note though, Clyde Edwards-Helaire does not look good. He cannot seem to break out a run. He had one long rush for 13 yards, but couldn't break out another run the rest of the game. And it's not like a good Patriots. Yeah.
He looks good.
He does for the Patriots. Yeah, he looks good. Like we mentioned already that we're not big fans of Sony Michel as it is, so to see Damian Harris is encouraging. Have actually some depth there, but yeah, no, I was surprised. I thought this would be a good game for Clyde because the Patriots obviously are going to scheme up Patrick Mahomes pretty well, and I thought maybe this could have been a good running day because the Pats defense hasn't been amazing against the rush, but not really performing well for Clyde.
Yeah, no, and a little disappointing for fantasy owners. I mean, he did have a strong past couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's always hit or miss coming into New England because you don't know who Bill Belichick's going to take away. I mean, obviously the Chiefs have so many options, so you can only take away so many. Obviously, Clyde was the guy this week. And then obviously the other game just kicked off. The Falcons at Lambeau taking on Green Bay. I think Aaron Jones has a touchdown.
Yep. He
just
got stuffed at the one.
Stuffed at the line. The other one.
Touchdown, and then they went for it on 4th and 1 and didn't get it.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll definitely be jumping into this game on Thursday on our next podcast. But that is all we have for you today. We want to say thank you very much to Ian Beauchesne of Titletown Takes. We appreciate you coming on the show, Ian. Definitely check out his podcast. When you get a second, Beach, tell them where they can find you.
So we're up on YouTube. You can find us there. Be sure to like and subscribe. We're also on Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker. You can also find us on Anchor as well. You can follow us on Twitter at Titletown_takes. Got a lot of great content coming out. We're rolling out what we're calling the Titletown Takes PA train. We're currently speaking with public address announcers from at least a dozen NHL organizations. So we got a lot of great stuff coming out for people to tune into.
Yeah, definitely check him out. I did see that video on Twitter. Very funny. But anyway, that's it from us. Thank you guys so much for checking in, for tuning into this episode. Can make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Rob will have all the links to where our podcast will be posted below. And until next time, we will see you soon.
Peace out, fellas.